I watched them all the time. I think I watched Indiana State and Iowa, Caitlin Clark play about the same last year, so I was watching a lot of basketball.
Like, can we get Caitlin Clark a little protection out there?
Anybody that does something flagrant to this young lady for what she's brought to the game should be suspended and fined.
What happens when one of the greatest basketball superstars ever witnesses the most gifted young athlete in the WNBA being singled out by dubious tactics? You're going to find out because the basketball world has been completely rocked by Larry Bird's incendiary remarks regarding Alyssa Thomas's actions against Caitlin Clark. Let me ask you something first, though. Have you ever witnessed a top athlete being singled out the way Caitlin Clark has been throughout her career? Because Larry Bird's perspective on the WNBA has completely changed as a result of what he saw during that Phoenix Mercury game. This is what Alyssa Thomas finds so heartbreaking about Bird's viewpoint. Caitlin Clark is exactly where Larry Bird is at this moment. In the 1980s, Bird was the best player in a league full of amazing athleticism who attempted to physically intimidate him because they couldn't match his extraordinary basketball IQ. However, Bird highlighted this important distinction. And this is where Alyssa Thomas's reputation becomes really intriguing. Bird is aware of the distinction between what he's witnessing with Clark and what he saw during the mob situation and championship-level competitive basketball. He described it as the most cowardly act I've seen on a basketball court in decades. You heard correctly.
Look at that. Boom. Look at her put her knee into Caitlin Clark's groin. Right there on that play. Right? I mean, this is gross. Right there.
Bird's response was swift and nasty when he saw the video of Alyssa Thomas pushing Clark from behind when she was coping with being poked in the eye. Almost no one in basketball history had a better understanding of what true competitive fire looked like than this man, who fought against legendary enforcers like Dennis Rodman and Bill Lemire. However, even he could see that Alyssa Thomas's actions went beyond all bounds of competitive integrity and sportsmanship. But pay attention to what Bird has to say regarding the timing of that shove. This is the point at which Alyssa Thomas is completely devastated by his analysis. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel before we proceed. Let's get back to the story. The basketball star made a point that many fans had been considering, but no one with his extraordinary credibility had the courage to express it out. Playing championship-level defense and taking cheap shots at a guy when they're completely exposed and not looking are two very different things. Bird stressed that his time was generally regarded as the most physically demanding in NBA history. When you had a disagreement with someone, you confronted them head-on like a warrior rather than waiting for their back to turn before acting like a predator. And that's precisely what angered Bird the most about Alyssa Thomas's shameful behavior. However, this is the point at which Bird's criticism completely destroys Alyssa Thomas's reputation. The Celtics veteran was especially incensed by Alyssa Thomas's pitiful response following the incident. Rather than expressing any regret or admitting that she might have gone too far, Alyssa Thomas pretended that the fans and media were unfairly criticizing her. "Damned if I do. Damned if I don't," she murmured. However, Bird became even more agitated after hearing such remarks. According to Bird, the game's champions and legends, truly great competitors, always accept full responsibility for their acts, particularly when those actions could seriously endanger another player. He claimed that seeing Alyssa Thomas play the victim and sidestep criticism made him think of athletes who secretly knew they couldn't compete at the top level. They therefore discovered other dubious methods to influence the game. To put it another way, Bird effectively referred to Alyssa Thomas as a second-rate player who uses unethical methods because she lacks the actual basketball talents to match better potential. This is where Bird's study really shines and exposes something amazing about Caitlin Clark. Bird sees in Clark the exact same uncommon attributes that made him one of the best players ever to touch a basketball. That extraordinary basketball IQ, those clutch shooting powers that defy explanation, and most crucially, that divine vision to make everyone around her much better. However, as someone who values basketball's ethics, he also notices something that truly worries him. Rather than concentrating only on realizing her limitless basketball potential, this exceptionally gifted young athlete must continuously keep an eye out for cheap shots and dirty tricks. According to Bird, Alyssa Thomas's strategy embodies all that is wrong with certain players' decision to compete against Clark rather than challenging themselves to match her extraordinary skill level or outwork her on the court via commitment and preparation. She gets physically targeted when she is most vulnerable, which is an unsettling pattern. Bird described this behavior as the poorest kind of basketball competition he could think of. The whole basketball world is buzzing about Bird's incendiary remarks because of this, though. Bird likened Clark's situation to his own encounters with physical intimidation during his professional life. However, he was quick to draw attention to something that perfectly contextualizes Clark's predicament and elevates her. At barely 22 years old, he noted, Clark is dealing with a lot more hardship than most athletes encounter throughout their careers. And she's doing it while bearing the heavy burden of being the unchallenged face of women's basketball. However, Bird's statement regarding Alyssa Thomas's future in the league is currently going viral on social media, and you must hear it to believe it. According to Bird, if the WNBA permits players like Alyssa Thomas to target superstars without consequence, it sends the message that mediocre players can resort to unethical methods in order to remain relevant rather than honing their genuine basketball skills. According to him, this sets a risky precedent that can discourage the players who are pushing the league to new heights. Bird went so far as to say that young players watching at home are misled by the league's inability to sufficiently penalize these behaviors. According to him, viewing the WNBA should teach children about skill, commitment, and sportsmanship rather than how to target opponents when they're weak. However, Bird's forecast regarding Clark's future in spite of these obstacles was arguably the most impactful aspect of his entire remark. He claimed that Clark was shaped by hardship and that every cheap shot, dirty play, and attempt to intimidate her just strengthened her will to demonstrate her dominance via unadulterated basketball brilliance. Bird likened Clark's predicament to his own rookie season, when rival players continuously put him to the test physically to see if he could withstand the strain. He pointed out that the distinction is that Clark is dealing with this behavior in addition to the unheard-of media attention and expectations that come with being the most marketable player in WNBA history. This is why Bird's backing of Clark is so important. He's not merely protecting a gifted athlete, he is protecting basketball's inherent integrity. He believes that Caitlin Elizabeth Clark possesses all the qualities that define basketball, including talent, vision, class, and competitiveness. Additionally, he sees everything that may undermine the sport in athletes like Alyssa Thomas. The WNBA is at a turning point, as the basketball legend made evident. They have two options. Either they continue to let weaker players employ dishonest strategies to stay relevant, or they protect and highlight their best players, enabling guys like Clark to realize their full potential and improve the league as a whole. Making the right decision will determine the league's future. The question that has everyone talking, though, is this one. Will Larry Bird's cautions regarding safeguarding Caitlin Clark be taken seriously by the WNBA? Or will they keep letting athletes like Alyssa Thomas use dubious tactics to damage the league's reputation? Let's carry on the discussion in the comments section below. What are your thoughts on Larry Bird's utterly damning critique of Alyssa Thomas's actions? Do you believe he is being overly critical, or are his critiques entirely justified? More significantly, do you think the WNBA will eventually take action to safeguard its biggest star? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. I read each and every one of them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell if you want to see more analysis like this that breaks through the clutter and tells you what's actually going on in basketball. Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA may finally alter as a result of Larry Bird's inflammatory remarks. The basketball community is keeping an eye on this topic. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. The conversation is no longer just about one game, one hard foul, or one controversial moment. It's about the future of women's basketball, the standards the league wants to uphold, and how its biggest stars are treated when the spotlight is at its brightest. Caitlin Clark has entered the WNBA carrying expectations that very few athletes have ever experienced. Every game she plays is watched by millions. Every move she makes is analyzed from every angle, every success is celebrated, and every setback becomes a headline. That's the reality of being one of the biggest names in basketball today. At the same time, Veterans across the league continue to compete at the highest level, bringing years of experience, toughness, and pride to every matchup. The challenge for the WNBA is ensuring that fierce competition never crosses the line into unnecessary or dangerous play. Fans want intensity. They want rivalries. They want physical basketball. But they also want fairness, respect, and consistency. Larry Bird's comments have sparked passionate debate because they come from someone who understands exactly what it means to play under pressure. Throughout his legendary career, Bird faced some of the toughest defenders and most physical opponents basketball has ever seen. Yet, his message wasn't simply about toughness. It was about protecting the integrity of the game and making sure that basketball skill, not controversy, remains the center of attention. Whether you completely agree with Bird's opinion or believe the situation has been exaggerated, there's no denying that his words have people talking. Fans, analysts, former players, and media personalities continue to debate what should happen when the league's biggest stars become the focus of physical play. Should officials be stricter? Should the league issue harsher penalties? Or is this simply part of professional basketball? Everyone seems to have a different answer. What cannot be denied is Caitlin Clark's response. Instead of allowing criticism, physical defense, or controversy to define her career, she has continued to focus on basketball. She keeps showing up, keeps competing, and keeps proving why so many people believe she represents the future of the sport. That resilience is one of the biggest reasons fans continue to support her. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented attention. Television ratings are rising, arenas are filling up, social media discussions are growing every single day, and new fans are discovering women's basketball for the first time. Moments like these don't just affect one player or one team, they influence how the entire league is viewed around the world. As the season continues, every game will carry even more significance. Every matchup involving Caitlin Clark will be watched closely. Every controversial play will be analyzed. Every official decision will be questioned. And every performance will help shape the narrative of one of the most talked about seasons in WNBA history. So now the biggest question belongs to you. Do you believe Larry Bird's comments accurately reflect what's happening in the league? Do you think the WNBA is doing enough to protect its stars while